So, moving right along, we're going to talk about water resources. Let's talk about water resources and Earth's water resources. 75% of the Earth's surface is water, and this includes oceans, rivers, lakes, ice, and snow. We also have something called groundwater and water in the atmosphere. So the groundwater is trapped in the ground, and obviously the atmospheric water is up in the atmosphere and not drinkable at that moment. However, most of the water on the Earth's surface is salt water and is not drinkable, technically undrinkable. Fresh water is less than 1%. And there's ice more than 2% as fresh water trapped in ice, but the majority of water is salt water and not drinkable. So in theory, there is enough fresh water for 20 billion people, but the issue is glaciers and permanent snow, 1.8% of all water, which is 69.4% of fresh water, and is melting. And the problem is melting into salt water, so then it becomes unusable at that point as well, which is unfortunately, and it's going to have a huge impact on the water supply if it does melt and go into the oceans and the stuff. But that is going to be an issue down the road. Groundwater and permafrost, 0.8%, 30% of fresh water. There's one of two main water sources. Permafrost, though, is unusable because it's frozen in the ground. And this overuse in many areas has led to this being threatened. Lakes, rivers, and watersheds, 0.007, 0.28. This is the second major source of water. Wetlands are significant during dry spells and they hold a lot of water. Overuse and climate changes and pollution is an issue with this. And then water in the atmosphere, of course. Rainfall can be collected, but is not really usable as part of the water cycle, and it's becoming an issue as well. Permafrost is permanently frozen layer of the Earth's surface in very cold parts of the world. About 20 to 25% of Earth's land has permafrost, where it never actually unthaws completely, even though it gets summertime. Pollution of surface waters. Human activity is the main cause of surface water pollution. Urbanization, industry, mining, forestry, agriculture, and shipping. Of course, you've probably seen the terrible oil spills that happen in the ocean that BP, for example, the Exxon Valdez was a famous example where oil spills out into the water because there's nothing they can do about it, and it's really kind of a tragedy of just oil spilling into the ocean. We also have sewage waste, of course. Mainly sewage is used for fertilizer or use of water. There are issues. Cities with older pipes do not have separate systems. Heavy rain can cause systems to back up and spill sewage into water sources, which becomes an issue then, of course. 36% of the world population does not actually have adequate sanitization, which is unfortunate. So you can have pollution, sewage pollution into water systems that people are drinking out of, which is terrifying and horribly unhygienic and scary at the same time because it can lead to diseases and deaths, of course. Chemical waste. Manufacturing and consumer have a lot of many chemicals getting into the water supplies. Some of them break down, but we do need to limit these. Others, like heavy metals, never break down and pose long-term threats, like mercury poisoning in the water can go on for years. The Great Lakes provide water for more than 9 million Canadians and 33 million Americans, and it's extremely important that we preserve these. The Great Lakes, or 5 Great Lakes, provide so much fresh water. I can never say this word. Eurotrophatic. Basically what it is when nitrogen and phosphorus cause the growth and then the rapid decomposition of water plants. And this comes from fertilizer runoff. So what happens is the fertilizer you put on your plants to make them grow, when it rains, it washes the fertilizer into the water system nearby. And the fertilizer in there then makes rapid growth of the plants within the area, which can be not good because some of these algae can be toxic. And some of these plants can be not good. And too many plants in the water system takes the oxygen out of the water, which the fish then need to use to breathe because they breathe through oxygen through their gills in the water. So this becomes an issue as well. So this is not good, not a good thing at all. Agricultural wastes are always a problem. Pesticides that you put on crops wash into the water systems. Runoff in lakes and rivers can lead to birth defects and cancers in people and animals. Old core countries frequently ban these chemicals, but non-core countries still use them. So more developed countries tend to not use these harmful pesticides, but a lot of the other poorer countries do because they're cheap and they're easy to get a hold of and they work. They are effective, but they're not thinking of the long-term issues. Runoff from animals also creates a huge issue. Cows, cow poop, bacteria from their manure can be very toxic in the water, and people can get sick from it. Aquifers are underground layers of materials that house water in it. Usually these are porous rock and gravel. And because they are porous, they can allow for these types of bacteria to get into the water and taint the supply. So this becomes an issue as well. Fossil water is another name for the water in aquifers because it's very old. Saudi Arabia uses a lot of its 2/3 of the water as fossil water. The rest is from recycled water and desalination, which is where you take the ocean water and make it drinkable, but it's very expensive and very time consuming. And when it runs out, the agriculture in South America that uses it will, no doubt, it's not South America. In Saudi Arabia, that uses it will die because there's just no water left. So you can see the groundwater footprints, the large footprints of the groundwaters here. And you can see how they are being used. So the wetlands, there are lots of wetlands. Swamps are mostly trees. Soil is saturated and you can't grow anything there. Marsh are usually soft stem plants, usually always water covered. Bog is spongy peat, very acidic, fed by surface water. Fen is like a bog but less acidic. Tidal marsh, tall grasses can be salt or fresh water, not usually found in the tropics. And then the mangrove marsh is the tropical version, dominated by the mango plant. So there's different types of wetlands. Basically, all these things are kind of a combination of water and vegetation. And depending on where you are in the world and the makeup of the area is what you're going to ultimately get. We do have a lot of swamps and marshes in Canada. Bogs are kind of common to Scotland and Ireland. They have bogs and fens, not so much in North America. Tidal marshes we do have in North America, and mangrove marsh they do as well, but in more tropical areas. Okay, that is it for water. It was quick, sweet, and short, I hope. And that's it for me for this lecture. And I'll see you guys in the next one.